Welcome to Health Sisters of the Nation, where you don't need a reservation. I said, Mama, hello, stand with open arms. Here to warn you with a one more time. Yeah, one more time, baby. Welcome to the nation. I said, welcome to the nation.
Good evening and welcome to a very exciting episode of the Hempy Hour. I am one of your hosts, Gina, Mama Epps, with my best friend on the planet,
Lolo Carter.
Lolo Carter.
Hi, darling.
Together, we are your favorite Hemp Sisters over at the Hemp Sisters Nation. And today is so special to us because it is, what is it, Lo? Can you please tell these beautiful people what today is?
Today is our 1 year Hempy Hour anniversary.
It's our anniversary, guys. You've been with us for 1 year.
Yeah.
We can't possibly thank you enough. We've learned a lot. We've had incredible experiences, incredible interviews, and we're just so blessed.
We are. Thank you for being on this journey. It was at its, spinning and snowballing before we started the Hempy Hour, and here we are.
Yeah.
And we arrived.
We're here.
We're here. You even brought a friend.
We
One second.
did.
And another friend.
Yes.
An important friend.
So today, for our 1 year anniversary special, it is our honor to introduce you to Paul Epstein.
Yes.
Paul is the current CEO of H6 Fit. You guys heard us talk about that in the last show.
Yes.
A holistic, functional, integrated therapeutics. So we're talking about alternative healthcare, which in our mind is not alternative, but just healthcare.
We're talking about structured and functional alternative healthcare.
Yes, taking control of your health, being in charge of you.
Right.
So without further ado,
Adieu.
I love that word.
Let's bring him in. Oh, it's saying joining.
Whoa!
Hi,
The man of the hour.
What an entrance! It was like a spin.
Wow, hey Paul. That was awesome. Guys, Paul Epstein here.
I love it.
You like
great
that, huh?
rescue.
Yeah, I was like, we need some spinny chairs because that's a thing now, Paul. It's gonna be a
Just
thing
wait,
now.
that's just the beginning.
Paul, it's so nice to have you on the Hempy Hour. Thank you so much for giving
Yes,
us your
thank
time.
Welcome.
My pleasure, and thank you for being part of what we're doing. You know,
Oh, it's
there's a
our
lot-
pleasure.
yeah,
Absolutely.
there's a lot about you too as well. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've told the audience a very little bit about you. Our last podcast, we talked about you. We talked about H6. We played them your videos so they know a little bit about your story. But if you could just tell them a little bit about Paul and all that is Paul.
well, great. Well, thank you. Well, first of all, for all of those folks out there, I just want to let you know that I've been a serial entrepreneur for the last 40 something years of my life.
Which is hard to believe with you only being 59.
That's the result. You want me to disclose my real age? Or,
Yes, because people are going to be blown away.
I just turned 70 February 3rd.
Incredible.
As a result of my protocol and the things that I do. That's why I don't only look like this, like I'm 50, I feel like I'm 35, seriously.
Yeah.
And that was a result of a lot of hard work and continued hard work. And everybody else out there could be the same, whatever age they are. And as I was saying, I've been on a health journey since I was 18 years old. And all those years thinking I was doing it the right way. At age 34, I started feeling some problems with my heart. And when I would go to my doc, he would say, well, extreme athleticism is what's causing it. I was a power lifter, a triathlete, a competitive mountain biker. And they kept insisting that the problem was due to this extreme athletics. And
Being too active, you were told?
yes,
Wow.
it was putting too much pressure on my heart.
Interesting.
And for 20 years, I walked around with this personal health crisis. And when I hit 54, and I was in the middle of my last business, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute, I started to feel pretty badly, and I realized I had to do something. So I basically put my company on the block and sold it. As I just mentioned, I build and sell businesses all the way through merger and acquisition.
Okay.
It was after I sold the company that I had later gone to, after I sold, I went to Hawaii for a month just to chill out. Realized I couldn't even walk from one end of the room to the other without feeling like I was going to literally just keel over.
Oh my gosh.
And
And you were 54 at that time?
I was 54 at that time. And what I did is went back to home in San Francisco, and instead of going to my existing doctor who had refused any intervention, I went to another doc who was a cardiologist, and they did an EKG, and they found what they call as a T-flip, and it was very, very minor. And he said, normally we wouldn't do an intervention, but in your case, you've been complaining about this for 20 years. Let's go with it anyway.
Yeah.
So they did what's called an angiogram. And an
After
angiogram,
20 years of problems?
20 years,
Oh,
20 long, hard years. And, at that point, I went for the intervention. They woke me up on the table and I said, you got a 90% blockage in the left anterior descending, which is also known as a widowmaker. He said,
oh my God.
they told me what they were going to do. They put a stent in. If no one knows about a stent, what that is, it's a metal scaffold that goes inside the
Between, right?
artery and it expands it. So what they do is they expand the artery and then they put the stent in to scaffold it. Coming out of that, I felt much better. I was able to finally breathe, and I was able to actually walk without feeling like I was going to run out of breath.
Wow.
But I realized that I still had some issues. I had what they call cardiac whack-a-mole, one problem, another problem. And the doc that actually did the intervention, he retired and referred me to another doc. We'll call him Dr. L, as in
Not
Laos.
Dr. Feelgood?
Dr. L for Laos. Dr. Laos. And he said, basically, there was nothing more that could be done. Just, enjoy your life, eat right, keep fit. And I said, well, what is that about? How I'm already doing it. He said, well, I don't know anything about that. And just, go enjoy your life. If you get another 6-8 years, just be happy with that.
Oh my God.
And yeah, exactly. So I just decided I'm not going to do that.
So was that because you were in without the heart condition, like in generally good shape, so they really couldn't give you advice like eat better, exercise, like that's usually what people present with heart problems, the lifestyle change. So you were already living a lifestyle that they would probably suggest. So they basically just said you're kind of like it's like a raw deck of cards for you, right? Like a raw.
Basically it's and he had no idea. He lacked what I later learned, the skills to correct the problem. And so what I did is I went back to my computer. I spent 2 years just sifting through the internet between myth and reality. And I touched on an article about testosterone, human growth hormone. And I started seeing some more information about functional and integrative medicine and hormone therapy. So I called this doc. After a while, I did some research and I speak to this doctor. I was in San Francisco, and the doc that I spoke to was a cardiovascular surgeon who turned into integrative medicine. Now, for those in your audience who are not familiar, there's allopathy, which treats the symptom. And then there's functional and integrative medicine, which treats the root cause of the problem.
Right.
Big difference. One is medication-based, the other one gets you off of medication. And when I spoke to him, he said, your problem sounds like testosterone. You probably don't have any. So I took a test. Sure enough, he was right. My intervals.
Now, what you said you took a test, Paul, was that a blood test?
Did a blood test.
Okay.
Actually, we did an extensive blood workup, not your typical workup.
Okay.
It was
I
more.
was something similar like what I had with IVF, like every single
All
like
of it.
reproductive hormone, like every thyroid,
Okay.
everything. Yeah.
Exactly. And he explained to me, he said, when you hit 30, your hormone levels begin to drop. Men go through andropause, and most men don't even know what that's about. Women go through menopause,
Sure.
which is what happens starting in their 30s. So we lose about 2.5 to 3% of our hormone balance beginning at 30. So that by the time you're 60, most of your hormones are gone.
Yeah, you're back to
Wow.
like that childhood state where you don't have that kind of function. There's no reproductive, there's
Well-
like a child where it goes either way.
Well, even if you're a child, you have hormones as a young child. We all need that. Growth hormone is another one,
Sure.
which is another story. And there's a doc who I'd love to introduce to your audience sometime, Dr. Gordon, who is a preeminent hormone specialist. And he was talking about this, that, and even in childhood, we deal with this. Children grow up needing growth hormone to grow up.
Sure.
Well, that's another story. But we found out that my testosterone was low. I needed growth hormone at that point. We determined that there were some issues around that. So they put me on a protocol, and within 90 days, I felt like a new person. I had
Wow.
I'd never felt like that. And it's a good chance that I was dealing with hormone imbalance since 18, maybe even younger. And
Now,
that's
how do you find the correct dosage for you? How does that look?
the lab work will tell you what your
Okay.
relevant levels are and what you
How to get
should.
them back to where, okay,
So mine were at 175. Someone with heart disease should be somewhere, they say, around 900.
oh my God,
Yeah, it should be. It's heart protective. It definitely is a conduit for managing cholesterol.
wow,
So instead of taking a statin, your hormones balance it. It also converts into, or they say aromatizes into estrogen, which is heart protective. So this put me on a path to wanting to learn all about what is now H6 Fit, as we call the H6 Fit Health Shield. And it starts out with, we'll get into that in a little bit, but it starts out with teaching people these 6 key interventions or pillars of wellness. One of those interventions is knowing the basis of biometrics and diagnostics. And I had to learn that. So I now know what it is to look for in terms of my blood chemistry as it relates to my hormones and more.
okay,
The thyroid, testosterone, human growth hormone, cortisol, pregnenolone, progesterone, all of these factors go into our hormones, DHEA. All of these are important. And then on top of that, I also had what they call a DEXA scan. I found out that my bone density was in bad shape, and that I had a 52% chance of having a hip or a bone fracture.
wow,
Right? Because my vitamin D3 levels were extremely low. I was deficient. So I was put on a protocol. Like I said,
were you living in Florida at that time? Where were you living?
I was in San Francisco up in
California, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like you weren't in a sunny state and
Right,
still were
exactly.
that depleted, because that's,
Yeah.
I think that's a misconception people think, I don't need vitamin D, I live in Florida or California, or, I get sun. And it sounds like that might not be the case all the time.
Well, to kind of veer off a little bit, with what's going on with the COVID, there are studies now that, especially one that just came out recently from Israel, that basically points out the higher your D3 levels are, the less likely you are to get COVID. And if you do get COVID, your recovery time will be much faster.
Sure.
Right.
D3 has a huge impact on COVID. And they're saying that sun isn't going to do enough of it. You need to take a dose of vitamin D3 and keep it at a higher than normal level.
Right.
And by the way, I did suffer from COVID. I did not do the vaccine. And I think the two of you might know this, maybe Lois, you don't. But I had COVID back in July, and I was over it in 3 days.
Awesome.
As a result of my immunity. It was more like a flu. But anyway, so this put me on a path. This whole experience put me yet on another path to helping other people, which is something that I love to do. And I started helping my friends at the gym. One of them, a gentleman by the name of Ken, struggled with irritable bowel syndrome. And his doctor told him there was nothing to be done. I spoke to Ken. I sent him to my doctor, and within 3 months, they put him on testosterone also, which is part of his problem, and some other gut health protocols. Within 90 days, he was feeling so much better.
Wow.
That's good.
And the stories, I can sit here and talk to you for hours about the stories I've heard about better managing chronic disease or even reversing it or preventing it. So what happened is, as a result of my experience, I decided to do what I did in my last company. And to talk a little bit about that, if I may, my past business was called High Voltage Interactive. Back in 2000, the internet boom went bust. For anybody in the audience who would remember, the internet was given up for dead at that point. Everybody said it was nothing more than just a fad. And I just kept plugging away at it. And usually what happens back when you have an economic bust, two things happen. People's credit goes bad, or they go back to school to reposition their careers. So I focused on the latter. And we built a virtual career center, a virtual career campus that was helping people. We then started giving free tests to people who were looking to reposition their careers. And then as a result, we had, in addition to the tests, we had over 250 career development specialists and enrollment advisors from schools all over the country. And over a period of 5 years, we connected with about 6 million people, and we
Wow.
Placed about 1 million.
That's awesome.
And that resulted in quite a feat, but a 24/7 operation. That's probably what pushed me over the top as a result, of dealing with the stress of running that kind of an intense organization. But it worked. And so I decided to come back out of retirement to help others heal. And my goal has been, and I get a little emotional about this because, I hate to see anybody suffer.
Yeah.
Have you ever walked into a doctor's office and you see a group of old people who are sitting there and their walkers and canes are parked somewhere in a corner, looking like a taxi stand in Los Angeles?
Yeah, no, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
It sure is. And actually, our CMO, Dr. Kevin, he got his patients off of walkers and canes as a result of the work that we did together. And I watched a group of his patients, women and one man, who, when I walked into his facility a number of years ago, and I'm watching them lift weights. They're doing dips. They're lifting weight. And I said to him, "You helped all these people? There no more walkers and canes?" He goes, "Absolutely." I turned to his wife and I looked at her and she said, "Yep, he did that." And there was one patient, a 93-year-old man named Walter, and he grabbed my hand and he took me over to the machine and he showed me exactly where his cane was last left. And there it was.
Oh, how awesome.
That's awesome.
You know what's really interesting about that? He went through training that my former chief medical officer and I put together. And that training resulted in the change. It's almost like that 6 degrees of separation where my part that I played in this is helping his patients. And there's so much more work to do. And so when I started, seeing all of this, Gina and Lois, it made me realize that there's so many people out there who need something like this. They would need to see what exactly it is that is being done. And my main focus was to deliver a health and wellness solution at a low cost, that it would be enjoyed by anybody who would be willing to spend a few dollars to get the type of support that we are providing. And if I may explain to your audience, the genesis of H6 Fit's Health Shield took
please.
8 years to develop. We had gone through many different pivots. I just didn't want to put anything out there because we're not selling books, we're not selling bikes, we're not selling flowers, we're not even selling health and wellness. We want to create a movement around this. And what really is, I'd say most interesting is that we bumped up against the pandemic when we decided to go to market. And I said, we're not doing this. We can't do it this way. I just didn't want to come out with just anything. And I said, we need to create a virtual environment, something that is immersive, fun, where people can feel comfortable and they can take a mental health break.
Right.
So as you know, we created Health 6 Fit with these 6 key interventions focusing on neuroscience and managing stress, depression, anxiety, PTSD, all of those issues that revolve around mental illness, whether mild, moderate, or severe. We also focus on nutrition, and in that regard, we look at food as medicine. We teach people, or rather than teach, I'd rather say we give them routines, daily routines. We're not.
But I like that you're not using the nasty word diet, which that word in itself, it's automatically like shuts you off before you've even started.
Right. And people like, I don't know why, probably 10 years ago, you're like, your diet is whatever you are eating, whether it be good or bad, like that's your diet.
Yeah,
Like,
it's gotten this negative connotation,
Right.
and people, as soon as you hear it, you like shut down.
Right.
And I like that you're not using that. It's has nothing to do with going on a diet. It's a lifestyle. It's your nutrition. It's what your body needs and how you eat.
It's your eating.
Well, I think it's also routine because
Yes.
we live in a very fast-paced society, and what we do is we go shopping and we go down the aisles. And I'm like that. I mean, look, I'm just as guilty. I love my Ritz crackers once in a while. Can't break from that. I enjoy, pizza and all these other
Right, we're
things, but
human.
I learned to minimize those. And the best thing you could do is cook from scratch.
Yeah, they say it in the supermarket, don't ever go up and down the aisles, go around the outside, because then you got your meats, your fruits, your vegetables, and that's, you start hitting the aisles, you're in trouble.
Right, all the prepackaged.
Right, cans and
High
boxes.
salt.
Right.
Exactly. And we have by the way, everybody, we have a great group of people. We have, and both Gina and Lois would attest to that. They're all very, very dedicated to what we're doing.
Yes.
And each of them have a specialty. Our chief science officer loves the Mediterranean diet. There are many others, but the one Mediterranean diet is probably the most universal. There's thousands and thousands of studies that point out the importance of the Mediterranean diet. And we follow it's a pyramid if you haven't seen it, and it's a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruit.
Right.
Nuts,
Lean
minimize the meat,
meat.
eat a lot of fish, drink wine in moderation, exercise as part of that as well. And we have on our site, we have over 500 recipes that we have hand selected that are really tasty. And there are other diets that we'd be looking at, but the Mediterranean diet is the key. And so we help people with a routine.
Besides the nutritional part of that, it's also, you were talking about the hormonal imbalances and things that those are life events that typically cause that, the extra stress, other things that, focus and put us into depressive states. But those kind of foods are actually, warming and uplifting types of foods, and they support a general wellness of your mental.
You joked about it before, but staying away from the apocalyptic food. Like, you don't want the boxes and the cans and the preservatives, No,
we don't. And that's the hard thing, it's and people think it's more expensive, to buy, to buy a healthy food, but it's actually more expensive if you have to cure the problem.
Right.
Right.
No, right. There's absolutely.
I mean, you're going to spend the money one way or another.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
And by the way, we all know this. I mean, everybody in your audience probably knows this. Nutrients have been stripped out of our food.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Let
Alone
alone
more processed,
Right. God knows what it's, what kind of pesticides and herbicides that everything's grown with. I mean, the soil, we're tainted from our air to our food to our everything, our water supply.
I was on with Dr. Kevin, and we were just talking about this about 30 minutes ago. The toxicity in our food is unbelievable. The toxicity in the environment is unbelievable.
Right.
most people, most docs don't know how to deal with that sort of thing. So, as I mentioned, we start with neuroscience. We feel that my position is you got to get this right before you can do anything else. Otherwise, if that's not right, nothing else is going to work.
That's beautifully said, and I hope everybody pays attention to that. If we're not right here, nothing else is going to fall in line. Lois tried teaching me that for years, and I literally couldn't put it together. That, even personally, it was me stopping me from doing things.
We're
that
fully capable of following regimens and things, but if it's not here pushing the rest of the output, it goes away. There's no sustainability to it.
Exactly. And they say that the body is the temple of the mind. And if the mind, which is the temple, which controls the temple, isn't right, then the temple isn't going to operate right. That's basically it.
Right.
And actually, there was a debate: should we put the diagnostics first, or should we put the neuroscience first? Well, what good is teaching diagnostics if somebody isn't ready to adhere to this and pay attention to it?
Right.
So,
right. They should be looking for this drive. Like there's something off. I need to discover it. And then you're giving the tools for that to help them through that journey. You're not playing doctor. Here's yeah.
Right.
You're giving them, you're showing them what health could look like.
Right.
Exactly. And I think that's it, that neuroscience becomes a reality check, but also something that's important that ties back to the diagnostics. And I remember being on Facebook on these general anxiety and depression groups, which I won't even get into that in much detail, but those places where people trade information mostly about the medications that they take and the alcohol that they drink, and they trade that information like two kids on a Brooklyn street corner trading baseball cards.
Right.
And so, but the bottom line is most people will either blame themselves for their condition or others will blame them and tell them to get over it. Well, I got news for you. The bottom line is that it's not just a matter of a psychological stress. Sometimes it has to do with physiological issues, an imbalance in the neurotransmitters, which could be genetic. It could be hormone imbalance. It could be neuroinflammation. These are factors that we educate people on, and we show them in plain and easy to understand terms, so that when you do go back to their doc, who is maybe a general practitioner, and they start talking about it, they're going to run circles around the doctor. We need to know more than doctors today. I'm no insult to allopath medicine.
Sure.
I think it has its place. That's where integration comes into play. But the fact is that the situation is dire. You got 50% of chronic disease in this country. Diabetes, 150 million people in this country, from young to older, struggle with that. Obesity.
I read an article not too long. Well, we always kind of visit it, but you were talking about your neurotransmitters earlier, and how, people don't even realize that like 85% of those are developed from the gut, the production of them from your gut.
Well, it's gut, and it's exactly, and it's also genetics. When you look at what we call, for example, I'll give you an example, and this is part of the diagnostics, we'll get to that in a second, there's something called the mother-father gene, MTHFR. And if you have a mutation to that, there's a very good chance that you're incapable of ingesting or absorbing vitamin B complex, B9, B6, B3. These affect your neurotransmitters. And it also, it's something called homocysteine, which it can be an inflammatory factor if it's not kept in check with a vitamin B complex.
Wow.
So that if you have an MTHFR mutation, that means you can't methylate or literally absorb these type of vitamins. You can take all the B12 all day long you want, but if you've got that mutation, it's not going to solve the problem.
Right.
So,
Can't metabolize it. Right.
What we do is we take that complexity and we distill it down to where we can understand it in its simplest terms. So starting with neuroscience, talking about food as medicine, medical fitness. Most fitness has been about imagery. And that's why a lot of people don't do it, because they think.
I love that terminology. You said medical fitness. I love that. And I've never heard it used that way, and that's perfectly said.
Yeah. And by the way, this is a growing field that the fitness industry is beginning to take a look at, realizing that it's not just about those people who sign up and become members so that they can bulk up.
Sure.
You have to bulk up your immunity. You have to bulk up your resilience. You have to bulk up your prevention against chronic disease. And, what's the latest, the newest smoking disease is sitting. And we do a lot of that.
Well said, right? Everyone's in front of a computer at a desk, right? Good point. A lot of people working from home right now, so that, they're sitting even more.
Right, exactly. So they say you got to do at least 150 minutes a week of exercise, even if you just get out and walk.
Sure.
That in and of itself can help. And the biggest problem is, before I go on, is people would say to me, "Who's your target audience?" I said, all I have to do is look around it. And if I'm walking in a grocery store, half those people, whatever age they are dealing with chronic disease.
Absolutely.
Because you look at baby boomers, you look at the Gen X, they're dealing with various sorts of chronic disease, but so is the millennial and the Gen Z. In fact, millennials are struggling probably the most at this point with metabolic disorders, disorders of mental stress and other factors. And so it cuts across all cohorts. Nobody is literally able to just say, it's just, I'm looking for the right word for this. Nobody's going to escape it.
Right.
And it's the food chain, it's the pharmaceutical industry, it's the way physicians have been trained.
Well, it's how generations of children are being raised. Like, I wasn't raised to take a pill for every time I sneezed.
You know what I mean? Saying it's how we've grown in through the medical system is you can live a risky and unhealthy lifestyle because pharmaceutical company has caught up and is going to preserve you based on what you do. But we've kind of lost, like, this is your vessel. We've lost, like, this is your vessel. Are you in charge of it, or are you just having people keep it after you've destroyed it? And that's kind of
and like Paul mentioned earlier, are you looking to cure an ailment, or do you just want to throw a Band-Aid on it so you feel better for the day? Those are two very different things. And I think education is a large part of all of this, because people don't think that they can just take charge of their health care. They think they have to go to their doctor to let them know what they should do with their health care. And we're here to kind of flip the script a little bit.
That's exactly right. And by the way, as I go through this, you've got the medical fitness. We have an amazing capability. We've developed a lot of good content, as you know, and providing people with not only the education, but the tools necessary that they could do workouts from home, right in their own home environment, whether it's bands or body weights or even free weights.
Right, or your own body weight, where you don't even need anything. You don't have to spend a penny, and we still got you covered.
And there are plenty of people doing that and seeing some tremendous results. Supplements. You walk into, let's say, a vitamin shop. You're going to meet with someone who's been trained in the back room for a week and knows nothing about supplements. And so we have a doctor, a PhD, who knows a lot about supplements, and these are important, the basics: vitamin D3, zinc, magnesium, but you got to know exactly what it is to take in this mix. It's not just go into a vitamin shop or Life Extension and just buy anything, or even in the pharmacy or in the grocery store. So we educate people on the good, bad, and the ugly of supplements. We go through this and we teach them this. And then hormones.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Paul, but that's another crucial aspect to all of this, because every commercial you see on TV, you don't know what to do. The average person doesn't know what vitamin they should buy or what's good for them or what they need at what age. And again, that's where education is crucial, because we're all consumers getting caught up in, the marketing madness and don't know what to do.
Well, our generation is like a word of mouth generation,
right?
Right.
Gina,
you have to try this. It
works so well. Like you're telling us about the brain rescue. Watching your reaction and seeing how it helped you, automatically, I want to try it. I didn't need to see a brain rescue commercial.
If we have some time, I'd love to talk a little bit about that. But
yeah, absolutely.
There's so much for us to know, and it can be daunting. But what we do is we break it up. As you know, when people come in, they pay $55 for a year, which is 15 cents a day.
Beautiful.
We get a personal health shield profile. We find out just exactly where they sit, and we score it, so they know what their score is in terms of not their chronological, but that score is more about what's their physiology, what's
Right.
their mental state, and it gives them a benchmark from which to work with. And then we put them through a 52-week lifestyle routine program. Every week we're going, these are in 6-week cycles, 8 different levels. So there's level 1, we go through an introductory phase, and then all the way up to level 8, which by the time they're done after that first year, they've got everything they need to know to be their own self-care advocates and to advocate for others. And then the following year, we just keep taking it to the next level because this is changing continually. And then during that 1 year, we also give them access to our Health Shield team every week. So let's say week 1, let's for a moment focus on neuroscience. We talk about an introduction to neuroscience and how the brain states are affected in stress, from a limbic state all the way to a calm state. That limbic state is where, well, what's happening is, they're operating from a very base level. And this is where people are usually stressed out when they're in that limbic state. So we basically help them quickly understand the ways to get out of that and to deal with it. We also then, let's say, bring in the team. So in the beginning of the week, you see the introduction to a particular session. At the end of the week, they join us in a webinar, and the entire team is on that call talking about some specific aspect of neuroscience. It might be to talk about the COMT or MTHFRs we just talked about, or some aspect of neuroscience that is going to help them in their daily routines. So that
That's
happens every
awesome.
week.
That is awesome.
And
And that would be like a Q&A, like they could ask questions at that time?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this has been very well designed, as you know, and it's taken many, many years to do that. And then finally, so we have hormones, we all need them. We do. It's, and especially today, because the stress levels can speed up changes in hormone balancing. Cortisol is, a very important stress hormone. And if that's out of whack, it's like bowling ball pins. One will fall right after the other. That's what will happen. And I find this, by the way, very exciting, to do this sort of thing, because if I didn't know this, folks, I would not be here today. I would not be here today.
I mean, there's no doubt. And you using everything you've been through in your own personal life to help others, hopefully not go through, God forbid, a year, let alone 20 years of diagnoses and not knowing, what's wrong. Something's wrong. You're not right. And to be told like, oh, go home and we'll just see what happens. Like, I can't imagine that frustration. So I thank you for just being open and honest and letting people know there's another way.
There is. And
Right. Gotta be open.
it certainly, touches my heart in many ways, literally, because a lot of the suffering that people deal with is unnecessary.
Right.
It's totally unnecessary. And to finish off, I want to say hormone balancing, we give people ways to do it naturally. But if there's a need for an intervention, we refer them to a physician. And there are many ways that people can solve that problem by getting the right diagnostics. So we educate people on what diagnostics they need. And if any of their doctors tell them to get the heck off of this stuff, then what you do is you get up and you walk out, because they're not giving you the right information. I deal with this all the time. I have a doc I just spoke to, as one of my docs in Florida. And the doc asked me, are you still on that hormone stuff? I said, yes, I am. And she said, well, you know my opinion about it. I said, yes, I respect your opinion, but I am not your normal patient. The fact is, I'm doing better than your average patients, and you know that.
Right.
Well, what's really frustrating about that, Paul, that not only is she borderline condescending to you over you using some, natural remedy, but won't take the time to try and learn that it's actually helping you, why it's helping you, and maybe that could help somebody else. Like,
oh
that's
my
so
goodness.
Frustrating to me.
I said to her, you mind if I send you a couple of books on this subject? She
Whoa,
said,
no way.
I'm not interested.
Right. I don't want to learn. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Lo and I had a
Well, I
very
think it's-
similar situation with my doctor and,
Yeah.
you know, we over CBD. And what CBD, you know, might raise your liver enzymes because of the cannabinoids in your body processing it. She sends him literature to explain
And
this.
not even like
phenomenon.
something, you know, like actual scientific studies published in journals.
He would not even look at them, did not believe us. It was chalked up as a lie. I told him I'd stop cannabis for one day, go back the next day and get a blood test. I did exactly what I said, went back. My levels were all completely normal, proved everything that Lois tried to teach this man who already knew everything. And you know what I mean? I ended up changing doctors because he literally would not listen to science. Like that's where we ended up. I switched doctors.
That's another episode, you know, about what's going on.
Right, that's for sure.
Well, I think a lot of that
around the world.
I think
Right.
a lot of that has to do with just how doctors manage patients. This isn't like, you know, 40, 50 years ago where you might get the doctor, he had a small practice, a few families, and that was his practice. Now they have administrators, they have, you know, high, you know, malpractice insurance. They have all of these little protocols. You know, so if they do a blood test and it's A, B, and C, the protocol's already sitting there waiting for them.
Right.
You're never really an individual anymore when you go for healthcare. You're just not. The
Well,
demand's too high, you know?
Exactly. And to this point, there's a doc in El Segundo, Dr. Kent Holtorf. You can look, your audience can look this up. It's on YouTube called 17 Years Ahead.
Okay.
And everybody probably knows this, or maybe they don't, but when a doc graduates and gets out of residency and they go into a practice or they go to work, where do you think they're getting their information from?
Pharmaceutical companies, they do their books.
Whoever's funding the books, right? You
That's
bet your ass.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And he exposed this. Here's a man who himself had thyroid problems. And I didn't know much about the thyroid. You know, I do now. And I'm on Armour Thyroid. I have hypothyroidism. And if I don't do that, let me tell you, I'll be in a wreck. And I'll tell you in a minute a story about this, just in my own personal experience. You watch this, it's about a 50-minute YouTube video. And he talks about the thyroid in ways that most people don't understand. There's T3, T4, reverse T3, T4, reverse T4, TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. And all of these factors play in. And when you go to a doc and you get your typical blood work, they don't do this sort of stuff. In fact, when you do your blood work, have you ever heard of this? You call up, hey, everything's just fine.
Yeah, they only check that TSH for the free flowing thyroid hormone, you know, but that, yeah, the T4.
T3, T4. Well, I just recently had a bout with my thyroid and it swelled up like a golf ball. So I went for an MRI, I went for a scan, you know, and it was determined that I needed to go for some more tests. They thought I had thyroiditis, which means, you know, what are they going to do when they can't medicate it? What do? They cut
You
it out.
have swelling, so you must need Vicodin.
Yeah, well, that you need
No,
to
they go and they remove part of it.
remove it. They
Yeah.
take it out.
Fuck's sake.
Either you medicate it or you
Beautiful
cut it out.
solidify organ in your throat.
Well, so here I am in between this visit that I needed to go to a radiologist because they were going to now check out my thyroid more in depth to see the next step would have been to make an arrangement for surgery. So there I was, I'm sitting at my desk and I'm reading about this. You know what the problem was? I got to the root cause. If you eat cruciferous vegetables, too many of them, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, or anything that's cruciferous,
Okay.
it blocks TSH, thyroid stimulating hormones.
Oh, wow.
I was eating broccoli and cauliflower for the last 25 years. Why? Because the doc said it's good for you.
So healthy, right?
It's healthy and it'll prevent many issues. But nobody knew. And you don't have to believe me, folks. You go look this up yourself, cruciferous vegetables and thyroid, and you'll find out there that that cruciferous vegetables will cause a blockage of your thyroid stimulating hormone, which will cause your thyroid to go into overdrive.
Wow.
And I'm
So-
sure that even, comes down to that might happen to you, but it might not happen to her.
Sure.
So again, it's understanding the underlying physiology, right? I mean,
Well, that you can
in
probably
general.
find out through genetic testing, but the
Right.
bottom line is we have to be our own self-advocate.
Yes.
That's
Now,
Oh my God, we've been screaming that for 10 years. Like, please, no one's telling you what to do. Just open your mind and look into different options.
yeah, this can almost turn into a series, by the way, and what you're doing here, seriously, because there's so much to know. There really, truly is. And by the way, for those folks in the audience, H6FIT stands for Holistic 6 Functional Integrative Therapeutics. If you do those basics and you live those, your sleep will resolve, your pains, your aches will resolve, all of those factors that you're dealing with. If you follow this type of protocol, you will see and feel a complete difference in your life.
I'm going to throw in just the empowering feeling you get when you're part of your own healthcare and you're not just kind of waiting for somebody to pull the string for you.
Right.
Where you're part of your healthcare plan. How
Well,
it's
you have
intended
to
to
be.
be.
Yeah, today you have to be. I mean, look at what happened with the pandemic. It
Right.
came upon us so quickly and nobody was prepared for this. In fact, when you look at this, it's more like an advanced state of the flu,
Right.
except this disease, this COVID literally attacks the cholesterol. It really starts targeting certain aspects of your body that literally create a serious change. And so, by the way, if you are on certain type of medicines, like, for example, statins
Mhm.
or a hypertension medicine, that might help solve the problem. But vitamin D3, zinc, magnesium, quercetin, literally an armada of supplementation will help fight this off. But I'm not a doctor. The
Right.
doctors don't know enough about this themselves. So,
Right.
And some doctors can't take that chance, right?
well, they don't want to, number one, they don't want to, a lot of them don't want to stick their neck out. But to your point, Lois, it's a matter of self-care. And by the way, I'm one of those that I don't want to do a vaccine. I'm not ready. It's not even to me a vaccine. Don't get me started on that. This is something that this is beyond the scope of this conversation, but
Sure.
the science has been hidden. The
Right.
science has been blocked because it's all about the money. That's what it is about. And
Yeah.
we have to have the ability to make our own decisions. And even if those people have been vaccinated, the fact is you still have to follow a protocol of self-health help.
Right.
That's what I think it is.
Right.
Right. Which in some sense just makes the vaccine necessary. Anyway,
Yeah.
gonna go on.
Yeah, that's another topic. In terms of what we're doing, by the way, I think we have a very all-encompassing approach. We have, in addition to the membership, we'll be building out quite an extensive community where people will be able to connect with practitioners and others who are like-minded in various areas. We also play a very big role, as you both know, and we didn't build this out 100% because we want the members to come to us and give us advice on what they feel they want, what's important to them, because
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because you have a very special offer for founding members, correct? I think it was up to 10,000 founding members can get 10 shares. of
shares
each.
each. Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
that's incredible. Like, that's an incredible offer.
Well,
In your health and your
yeah, well,
Yeah,
they say health is wealth.
Talk
So
about ROI.
we put the health in wealth, and we put the wealth in health. I mean,
Hey, I love that.
it's and I feel that by doing it,
I love that.
we
Hey.
want them to be part of this.
Yeah.
And we want them to know that they have a choice and they have a voice in what they're doing. Because if you look at the research by companies like Deloitte and McKinsey and others, consumers are saying that they have no control over any of this. So we want to design it this way. And I think you'd asked me a question a while back about what else is on tap. Well, Telemedicine, we're working with a company to provide a telemedicine solution for aspects that are beyond Health 6 Fit. In other words, if somebody has a cold or a flu, or they're dealing with just the general stuff, they'll be able to go to Health 6 Fit and get that too. We're developing additional content and tools, always more and more. We're looking at ways to improve the process. We have a coaching program that we'll be expanding into, and basically full service diagnostics and more. And again, we want the members to look at this and say, yeah, we like that, or we don't want this. How about that? And we want this to be a community where people are actually involved in this process for those that want to be.
That's
We
awesome.
open that door up, and it's manageable. Today we can connect with up to 10,000 people on Zoom if we needed
Right.
to, or more. And there's, like you do, polls and surveys and the like. So I think we can learn a lot from our audience, and
Absolutely.
we have that open door policy.
It's a great offer, and it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? An opportunity for health, and then having this after effect of it. One,
It's a missing
growing the
piece
community. Yeah.
So like what you're saying, all this, the madness that has come with this pandemic and people not knowing what to do or when to do it, and no one wanting to go to the doctor anymore. You don't want to be near a doctor or hospital. So what's your alternative? Virtual healthcare, and maybe that includes your doctor, or maybe that doesn't, and that's okay. Either way is okay, right?
It's really interesting, and to your points, both of you, we take what's going on in this chaos and turn it into a positive where we create health synergy.
Right.
Yes.
Proactive, not reactive.
I love that.
Exactly, Lois. No question about that. And
a like-minded community. I like that you said that too. It's a little like mini social media, and you don't have to find your tribe, because everyone's there's your tribe. They're all health and wellness minded. They're all nutrition minded, fitness minded. You're not there unless that's on your mind. So you've already found your tribe just by getting there. And I think that's very different than anything else that's out there.
Well, you're 100% correct. And I think what's important about this is that if we're all involved in this movement, we're going to see everybody's becoming more attuned to this. They're going to look for certain types of information that's out there. And we want them to share that information. Everybody's eyes and ears are open. So yesterday I was reading something about something called NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, which helps the mitochondria, which is the cells that give you energy, your body energy. And they were talking about how this helps prevent aging. And so I'm learning more and more about this, and I want to bring this to the public at large, not only here in the States, but around the globe, because all of these are what helps us stay healthy and young. I do NAD+, and it helps my energy. And as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Gordon has his supplements, one called Brain Rescue 1 and another one called Brain Rescue 3. I just started taking these, as I mentioned to the both of you earlier. And like within 5 minutes, my brain lights up like a Christmas tree.
That's incredible.
I mean, it's that kind of potency that's in those supplements that it's.
And it's not a disconnected, heightened, if you drink too much coffee.
Right, you're not taking ephedrine.
No, right. It's a more focused, it's a more of a natural, just alertness that we are constantly missing because of stress. That's what happens with me. I get a fog, you know what I mean? It's this mental fog where, you're moving around, things are working.
You're functioning, right?
You're functioning, but there's no clarity really. There's no
exactly.
focus.
Exactly. And I get the same thing. We handle so much more today than we ever did.
It's right. It's just constantly firing. I'm just trying to what's the path?
Right.
So this helps with that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm much older than, the two of you, almost put together.
No. Thank you for the compliment, but no.
But no, all kidding aside, I remember years ago when they started saying technology is going to streamline your life and free up your time to do more things for yourself. Well, I don't think so.
It's the opposite, right? Took way more of our time.
2 phones sitting, 3 computers.
Right, a pad, a laptop, and a desktop,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And
Oh, it's
We used
crazy.
to grow up with parents that would kick you out of the house. Like you didn't even have access to
Yeah,
that
you're not even
one-
coming home till
That
it's
one
dark
thing
out.
that you did have, you didn't have access to that one thing.
Get outside.
It was on their,
I got more remotes on my, in my living room than I have fingers on my hands. And the alarm is electronic and everything's electronic. And of course, when you get a solar flare, boom, it's all screwed up. And then you're going, where am I? Right?
back to
What just
zero.
happened, right?
Yeah.
But I digress. The point is that after I had COVID, I had this, long COVID, and some of my folks on the team said, you're declining, you just, it's not you. And so I went back on my protocol, and within days I started feeling better again. But then I met with Dr. Gordon and he said, here, I'm going to send you this. And he sent it. I'm thinking, okay. So I took Brain Rescue 3 and 1 together, which you're not supposed to do.
That's Brain Rescue 4.
Exactly. And
That's the other dimension.
Right.
in 10 minutes, I felt like a Saturn V rocket. I mean, I was just taking off. And,
Just spinning.
Ground control to Major
yeah,
Paul.
exactly. I probably could have used a navigator at that moment.
That is awesome.
But now you found balance. You're
Right.
back to reality.
Have I really?
Oh,
yeah,
good,
I'm glad I'm fooling you.
It's working. The appearance is working.
Right, it's all coming together.
So the brain Rescue 3 and a cup of H6 Fit coffee have literally just, it's like going on a plane, when you're just taking off on that runway and you get that immediate lift.
Awesome. Well, I find that in the merch section, or is that coming soon?
Yes, both.
I love it. That's
Good
awesome.
vibes. Good vibes.
So
This is not nearly as exciting.
Very vanilla.
Yeah, very boring.
Very vanilla.
the point is this, if we do follow a protocol like this, and I have not seen anything like this anywhere yet, but if we do, we're going to have truly optimal health.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
And the clarity will be amazing for people. I stay up later. I mean, I already do, but I have such amazing energy as a result of the work that I do. And I just want to share that with as many people as I can.
That's
So
awesome.
it's
Paul,
For that, Paul.
Yeah. Do you have any words of advice for our audience before we let you go? Is there any parting words that you really feel like you want to resonate with them? Because I know we've kept you for a while here, and we want to make sure you've.
No, I appreciate the fact that, one, you've given me the time, and for those
Absolutely.
people who will spend the time watching this, I say to them, try us, join us, become part of what we're doing. Let us do the work with you, and we'll help you get healthy and stay healthy. If you already are, we'll help you improve that even more. And and here's what I'll say. Don't just put, your full trust in what I'm saying. Go and check it out for yourself and see what's out there. And then come and see us, and you'll see the kind of team that we have. And by the way, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll extend this. If any of your members or your friends and your associates out there want to, I invite them to come sit in on a Zoom call with our team.
I love that.
We can invite up to 10,000 people at the same time, and I'll be glad to do that. And you'll see the passion, the dedication, the love, the support that we're all putting into this for the benefit of mankind and womankind, the benefit of humankind.
Oh,
People solve a problem that's so easily solved that it's not funny.
Paul, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. This has been absolutely amazing. Everything you're doing, everything you've done for yourself, that you are now paying it forward to anyone that'll listen to you. I mean, we just want to help extend your voice.
Yeah.
And if we could leave this open, maybe we can have you on once a month, or, just rotate the team, and let's keep this conversation going. There can't be anything more important than health and wellness. No way.
Your invitation to do that, I'm sure, would be taken up by our doctors,
We would love that.
by our moderators. And in fact, it would be great to get all of them. Dr. Green had suggested today we bring 4 of our docs together, and I'm thinking now what we should do is bring all of them together, every one of them, and get on and have your audience set it up and let them pose their questions.
You do a round table.
Yeah.
I love that.
Exactly. He just said that same word. That's exactly what he said today.
Oh, I love it.
Put out, and for those of your audience that are hand raisers, and Lois, I love what you and Gina are doing. It's fantastic because we have to get this word out.
Well, we're really, you know, as we grow and as we get older, these things just they don't become just like, hey, this is something we should talk about. Like, they become part of us, and we need those conversations. We're trying to help like break an incessant cycle of of indoctrination and many other things. And it's, you know, there's the 2 girls from Chicago that are talking about it. What else do we need to show? What do we need to bring in here? What, you know, how do we speak to everybody? Not just people that like cannabis or people that like think we're funny or cute or whatever. Like, how do we do that and make it matter? How do you throw that first pebble, right? So that's kind of what we're always doing, is just throwing pebbles, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I want to say, I do want to add something. You asked me if I had any words of wisdom.
Yes.
You are the 2 of the lovely, 2 very lovely ladies.
Thank you.
And we love you. The team, I love you, and the team loves you. And certainly you bring a sense of light, you know, in a world.
Oh, thank you so much.
Needs that so much today. And like I said, I'll extend that invitation, and they can see the 2 of you in our environment and what we're doing and working together.
Yes.
And certainly if there are those people out there of your, I'll say it again, that want to join us, please do so. You know, whether you just want to get on a webinar and hear what we have to say, let them send you their questions.
Yeah.
We'll look those questions over.
Let's get to every one of them. I love it.
And let's get everybody back together with the team.
Yes.
And we'll demonstrate very clearly what we're doing, and they'll hear from the doctors.
Yes, that's crucial
As well. Not just me as a patient and the guy who's, you know, overseeing this, but those people who are actually on the front lines doing the work.
Awesome.
And I am sure.
I really like that. I think it brings a lot of comfort, because again, we have this inherent belief, like, you put the white coat on, I can trust you.
Right.
And, you know, it's how we were raised. I think it's really important to have those same people being leaders in transitioning our thoughts and how we handle ourselves and how we get helped handling our lives.
And make them be seen more human. They're doctors, but they will still talk to you, and they'll answer your questions, and they'll sit down and give you time out of their day. It's crucial to see doctors that way.
Hands down, my favorite part about Wisconsin is that the relationship with most of these doctors and how it's
so much more personal.
It's what do you need?
Right.
You know, and more of a guide than a authority figure.
Yeah. It's
and
nice.
that's
big difference from
everything.
Illinois.
And it sounds kind of, again, it's kind of mirroring that kind of experience. We're guides on a journey. And I've got some schooling and some education about the body. You know, you haven't quite gotten there, but let me show you what is important. Let me show you where to start.
Right.
You know, and it's huge.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, this is actually
everybody.
again, this is another part. You know, you can do a series around this whole thing and talk about particular subjects.
Absolutely.
Topics. But, you know, in San Francisco, I had a doc, you know, I'd sit there and I'd ask him certain things about the work that I was doing, he was not familiar with. And one day I said, can you get me, and when you do my lab workup, I would like an IGF-1, an insulin growth factor 1, as one of my markers. He said, I don't know about that. So he's looking it up on the book, and he said, I can't find it. He said, I don't have any time for this. He said, I've got other patients waiting for me. I got to go now. That was the end of that. Cut it right off.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll never meet again.
That's it. No, that's it. That's not someone you ever want any part of in your life. You don't want that feeling that you just felt like those doctors don't have a place.
Is there room for ego in healthcare? Is there room?
Well, of course not. But, you know, again, here, if that question came up, we would find somebody that we actually have the ability to do these things. You know, first of all, we educate, and then they'll say, okay, now we want to deliver them deliver to them the services that can help them take that next step.
Right.
And, so it has to be an all-inclusive process.
Absolutely.
And this is what we do. And, if we can bring in, our goal at this point, in this next year is to bring in 100,000 people and have them participate in this. And by the way, we'll do studies on this to see the outcomes, and people will be able to see not only on an individual, but a group level, how well we perform in our efforts. I
Right.
can guarantee you that in less than a year, people will see the difference instantaneously if they follow.
Absolutely.
So God bless to both of you.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to having you and everyone from the team back on with us.
Always.
Well, let's make that happen.
Yes.
I will let the team.
I really think we stumbled on something really interesting with that. I think
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
We're in.
100%.
Oh, you know what? This creates a whole new approach to this where, we bring in the team and let them talk about it. And I mean, where are you going to get this kind of team for the kind of money that we're doing?
No,
Seriously.
Paul, exactly. And this is our first episode of season 1. Like we said, this is our 1-year anniversary. The timing couldn't be any better. Like, let's run with this. We know what people need. They might not know what they need, but we know what they need. So let's show them.
And we need to also show them not to be afraid to ask these questions.
Right. Take control of your life.
Well, that's it. That's another interesting
Good.
point. No question is a stupid question.
Right.
You just don't, what you don't know, you don't know. And,
Right.
if I were to do this with my traditional doc, he would, first of all, he wouldn't know. He said, that's out of his, well, I've had that happen. It was out of his realm, and, they would dismiss it.
Right.
Because there you have an ego. You have an arrogant, amongst some of them, there's an arrogance about them. And
Absolutely.
if there are any docs out there, with all due respect, it's not them that I'm targeting. It's that's the general theme of what people feel.
Right.
So we're certainly looking forward to a great future ahead with the work that you do and what we're doing together. And I think together we can really make a big difference for those people that really feel that they are ready for it. You have to be ready for this, because I will say this, there is work involved in this because you're creating new routines. And one last thing, I have a weakness for cookies. So, I'd always say to my girlfriend, would you make me a bunch of those chocolate chips, but put some nuts in it?
I know it's good to keep it healthy. I mean,
nuts will help
fatty acids.
Well, yeah, but then the nuts will actually help reduce the
counteract the other, right?
Will reduce the insulin uptake. But I remember years ago, I used to love nuts. So I remember, I go out and I buy these shelled nuts. You don't know how they produce them. They're in a bag.
Sure.
And so I started eating these nuts in a shell. And actually it's fun because you get to crack them. I finally, after many, many years, figure out how to crack a filbert without cracking it into a zillion pieces. But my grandmother used to have nuts on the table and fruit, no cookies. And now I'm back to doing that. That's a routine. That's not a behavior. That's a routine. So every day I got the bowl outside and back and forth all day long. I'm eating 4 or 5 of those.
I always have walnuts and almonds just in the
We always had walnuts and the cracker.
Almonds and the cracker on the table.
Yep.
Hey, there you go. And that's just simple. And have a
The
piece
other
of
ones
fruit.
called like the hazelnuts.
Those real big ones.
Those real big ones, like the triangle, like almost, yeah.
So instead of having a cookie, which I'll do, I still do them. I'm not going to force people. You can't force anybody to do it.
Right.
I'll have my cookie, but during the day I'm eating an orange. I put some Vietnamese cinnamon on it, which is also good for you. Or there's another one, I forget the name of it, but Vietnamese is good. So I open it up, I put a little Vietnamese cinnamon on it, and I have some nuts. That's good.
Right.
So these are sort of some of the simple things we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Much. Yes,
Wow,
it has been
thank
our
you.
pleasure. Thank you for your time, and we will speak to you soon.
Okay, take
Bye,
care.
Paul.
Bye.
Thank you.
How do I do this?
Oh, he's
Oh.
gone.
That was easy. Guys, it was such a pleasure today. I'm so glad you got to meet Paul. Amazing man. H6 is the future, virtual healthcare. We'll be giving you plenty more information. You heard we'll be talking to our doctors and scientists and everyone on the team, answering questions, and let's just keep the conversation flowing.
Yeah, and if you caught it, you can actually, part of the future, like help build that.
Yes,
You
yes.
know,
You want to
that's-
own 10 shares of a company, and only pay $1 a week to be a part of it. I don't know if it gets much
Access
easier.
to all that information. My God, could you imagine?
Right. So whether you are watching us or listening to us, we appreciate you. We thank you for your time, and we really thank you for being part of 1 year.
1 year. Big
of the
fan.
Hempy Hour.
Thank
One love.
you. One love.